Welcome back to the deep dive. This is actually episode 6 in our ongoing series on Psycho Cybernetics. And today we're looking at a paradox that has honestly been driving me crazy all week.
It is a big one.
It really is. So picture this scenario.
Yeah.
You are facing a massive roadblock at work or maybe a complex, high-stakes decision in your personal life. You spend days just turning it upside down. You examine every possible angle, overthinking it until your jaw is clenched, your stress is through the roof, and you are entirely stuck in your own head. You just feel completely paralyzed.
Yeah.
Well, the surprising reality we're exploring today is that the reason you feel this endless frustration is not because your problem is unsolvable. It is actually because you are using the wrong hardware in your brain to try and find the solution.
That feeling of paralysis is practically a universal human experience. I mean, we all found ourselves staring at the ceiling at 2 in the morning, just trying to force an answer into existence through sheer willpower and cognitive brute force.
Right.
So the mission of our deep dive today is to unpack exactly why trying to solve our most complex problems with conscious thought alone actually backfires on us. And more importantly, we are going to look at the mechanics of how you can finally step out of your own way and let your built-in success mechanism do the heavy lifting for you. It requires a complete paradigm shift in how we navigate challenges.
Okay, let's unpack this because the actual mechanics of how our mind operates here are fascinating. Since we are all familiar with the basic functions of the prefrontal cortex, it is our logic and identity center. It is the conscious operator sitting at the keyboard.
Exactly.
This is where you exercise your imagination, where you deliberately set your goals, and where you gather incoming data from your environment. But the trap we keep falling into is trying to use that exact same hardware to do complex subconscious processing. It is simply not engineered to actually solve the problems. Its job is just to pose the problems, identify the target, and gather the facts.
When we say success mechanism, we aren't talking about magic or abstract philosophy here. We're talking about the subconscious pattern recognition engine in your brain. It is the exact same internal servo mechanism that keeps you balanced on a bicycle, without you having to consciously calculate gravity and momentum and inner ear fluid dynamics.
Wow, yeah.
If you tried to consciously calculate all those physics equations while riding, you would crash immediately. Psycho Cybernetics is basically built on the idea that the human brain operates much like a guided missile.
I love that analogy.
Right, so the conscious mind, the operator, selects the target. The internal machinery then takes over, constantly course-correcting and adjusting based on negative feedback until it hits the mark. When we run into frustration by trying to solve problems exclusively via conscious thought, we are essentially the missile operator trying to manually steer the fins mid-flight.
Yeah, you just completely mess up the trajectory.
Exactly. We become overly careful, overwhelmingly anxious and fearful of the results. This striving and forcing is exactly what jams our internal automatic machinery.
I hear what you were saying about this automatic machinery taking over, but I want to push back on this slightly.
Sure.
Because if we are just supposed to hand the problem over to our subconscious, isn't there a huge risk of just being lazy? How do we draw the line between trusting this internal mechanism and simply procrastinating or avoiding the hard work of thinking?
That is a crucial distinction to make. Trusting your success mechanism does not mean you skip the preparation. The intense conscious work has to happen first. You must become deeply interested in solving the problem. You use your forebrain to gather every single piece of data you can find. You consider all the possible courses of action, you weigh the odds, and you clearly define the problem.
So you do have to put in the initial effort.
Absolutely. That is the hard conscious labor.
Yeah.
But the key is that once that data is gathered and the target is locked in, the conscious mind has done its job, it has to step back.
Right.
Think about a highly skilled pianist or a professional golfer. During the learning phase, the pianist uses intense, deliberate, conscious effort to figure out which finger strikes which key. The golfer analyzes their grip, their stance, and their swing mechanics.
Very mechanical.
Yes. But once they step onto the stage or the fairway for a performance that studied self-conscious effort has to vanish. If a master musician suddenly tried to consciously control every single finger movement during a complex sonata, they would stumble and freeze. The action has to become spontaneous.
That maps perfectly onto a concept that comes up a lot in this material, which is entering journey mode.
Yes.
If you are constantly staring at your hands while you play the piano, you miss the music entirely. Journey mode dictates that you need to spend the vast majority of your time totally focused on the process and the immediate actions. You only need to consciously tune into your ultimate goal maybe once or twice a day just to verify you're still heading in the general right direction. Once you do that quick check-in, you drop it. You get right back into journey mode and turn the navigation back over to that subconscious engine. It reminds me of a time I completely ruined a major presentation for a client.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I had the slide deck finished by 5 p.m. It was great, but I stayed up until 2 a.m. tweaking the fonts, overanalyzing the flow, and trying to consciously force it to be perfect. By the time I presented it, I was exhausted. The deck was a disjointed mess, and I had totally jammed my own machinery.
What is fascinating here is that your 2 a.m. slide deck disaster perfectly illustrates the first major rule for freeing up this creative machinery.
I'm glad my pain is a good example.
It is the perfect example of how we handle the concept of worry. We tend to view worry as a chronic, continuous background state that just lives with us. But the guidance here is radically different. You must do absolutely all your worrying, processing, and agonizing before you make a decision, never after.
Never after.
Right. The deadline for conscious anxiety is the exact moment you lock in your choice. You gather the facts, you stress over the variables, and you might even decide not to take the risk at all. But if you do make the decision, the worrying phase is officially over.
Which brings up the flip side of that, because what you just described is the exact opposite of standard human behavior.
Very true.
The average person impulsively makes a decision or gets forced into one without doing the proper groundwork, and then spends the next 3 weeks agonizing over whether it was the right call. They place their bet at the table and then stand there sweating, analyzing the cards that have already been played. But what if the facts change? What if new information comes to light that makes you realize you made the wrong call?
Well, if new actionable facts emerge, then you have a new problem to pose to your conscious mind, and the cycle starts over. But what we are talking about is the destructive habit of second-guessing a decision without any new data.
Just spinning your wheels.
Exactly. There is a massive psychological toll to operating that way. A tremendous amount of human nervousness and anxiety is caused directly by mentally trying to escape or run away from a decision you have already physically committed to.
Wow, that makes so much sense.
If you make a choice to take a new job, but your mind is constantly screaming that you should have stayed at your old one, you are tearing your nervous system in two different directions. You are fighting a committed physical action with mental resistance.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. That is why gathering the facts beforehand is so vital. Once the decision is reached and execution begins, you must dismiss all responsibility and care about the outcome. You let the creative mechanism take over the execution. And that leads us directly into another massive trap that completely freezes this mechanism.
Which is?
The modern illusion of multitasking.
Oh, multitasking. We pride ourselves on having 50 browser tabs open in our brains at all times. I think corporate culture almost demands it now.
It definitely encourages it.
But trying to juggle a dozen different complex problems simultaneously only causes massive confusion and cognitive overload. It is rarely recognized for what it truly is, which is just inefficient, exhausting chaos. People think they're being highly productive, but neurologically they're just rapidly switching their attention between many different tasks. You are never truly focused on the task at hand because you are constantly maintaining the background noise of a dozen other obligations.
The science of context switching supports exactly what you were saying. Every time you switch your attention from one complex task to another, your brain pays a cognitive penalty. It takes time and energy to reorient. We have to realize that our success mechanism operates with what we can call a hopper, much like a physical machine that processes raw materials.
Yeah.
This internal hopper can only handle one single job at a time. The fundamental mechanical truth of the human brain is that we can only consciously execute one thing at a time. When we fully accept this, we can concentrate all our awareness and responsiveness on the exact thing we are doing right now. When we adopt this single-file attitude, we become relaxed. We're freed from the artificial feelings of hurry and anxiety. Even on your most chaotic days, problems actually come to you in single file. You have to feed those jobs to your success mechanism one by one. If you try to cram 3 jobs into the hopper simultaneously, the gears simply grind to a halt.
So to avoid grinding those gears to a halt, we have to radically shift our focus. Which brings us to the next core lesson, living entirely in the present moment. Obviously, making long-range plans is a requirement for a functional life. We have to know our destination.
Right.
But we cannot attempt to live our emotional lives in tomorrow or in yesterday. By executing today's single-file tasks, well, you are actually doing the maximum amount within your power to make tomorrow better. Creative living means responding and reacting to your environment spontaneously, and you can only do that if you are fully anchored in the present.
That presence is vital, and there is a very powerful practical grounding exercise you can use to force your brain back into the present.
I love a good exercise.
The next time you feel yourself tensing up or you notice that familiar jittery nervousness creeping in, stop and ask yourself two specific questions. First, what is there here and now for me to respond to? And second, what can I actually do something about in this exact moment?
Those are great questions.
You will quickly find that a huge percentage of your daily nervousness is caused by unwittingly trying to do something that simply cannot be done right here and now. You are stressing over a client presentation scheduled for next Thursday, or replaying a slightly awkward conversation you had yesterday. Neither of those events exist in the present moment.
They're just ghosts.
Exactly. You cannot act on them. Once you identify what is actually in front of you, the email you are writing, the dish you are washing, the report you are reading, you are then geared for action. You are freed from the paralysis of trying to perform an action that cannot take place.
That is a great tool for clearing out the daily static. But what about the massive, complex problems, the ones that actually do require deep insight, but our conscious mind just cannot seem to crack them? This leads to one of my favorite strategies, which leverages our downtime.
Yes, the downtime is crucial.
We have all been given the advice to sleep on it when we have a big decision to make. But there's profound mechanical truth to why that works. When you have been wrestling with a problem, poring over the data, and you are just hitting a brick wall, the most productive action is to completely dismiss it from your conscious mind. You walk away from the desk, you literally hand the file over to your subconscious, and you go to sleep.
The reason sleeping on it works so incredibly well is tied to how our brain networks operate. When you step back and stop consciously agonizing over a problem, your brain activates the default mode network. This is the network that lights up when you are daydreaming, sleeping, or letting your mind wander.
Oh, wow.
Your creative mechanism functions best when there is zero interference from your conscious mind. During sleep, or during any activity that fully relaxes the conscious mind, your automatic mechanism has the ideal environment to synthesize information, connect disparate data points, and spot patterns independently. This is exactly why you get your most brilliant, undeniable insights while taking a shower, soaking in a bath, or walking the dog.
Because you aren't trying so hard.
Precisely. Your forebrain has finally shut up and let the automatic pattern recognition engine do its job. But again, this only works if you have already started the wheels turning by gathering the facts and defining the problem beforehand.
To turn that theory into a specific micro-habit you can use tonight, here is something highly actionable. Keep a notepad and a pen right on your nightstand. Before you go to sleep, actively and consciously instruct your mind that you want to be open to useful information regarding a specific question you need answered. Pose the question clearly in your mind and then let it go entirely.
Let it go.
Just go to sleep. Then here is the crucial part. Be ready to record those spontaneous thoughts the absolute moment you awaken. The insights generated by that default mode network often evaporate the second you start thinking about your morning coffee or you check your phone. You have to capture the output immediately.
That is a brilliant way to capture the output of your success mechanism. But we shouldn't restrict this entirely to the nighttime. You also need to consciously practice physical relaxation throughout your workday to keep the machinery running smoothly.
How do we do that during a busy day?
Form the habit of stopping occasionally, just taking a deliberate moment away from the screens. Close your eyes and remember in vivid detail the physical sensations of deep relaxation. Form a mental picture of yourself sitting totally relaxed in a comfortable chair or lying on a beach. Actually, focus on how your arms feel your neck, your face.
Just totally check in with your body.
Yes. Take a breath and repeat to yourself that you feel more and more relaxed. Practicing this simple reset several times a day clears out the conscious static. It lowers the cognitive load and allows your automatic mechanism to function without the friction of stress.
It is amazing how just 2 minutes of doing that can completely change the trajectory of an afternoon. You are intentionally taking your hands off the steering wheel for a second to let the engine cool down, which perfectly sets up the power quote for today's deep dive. There is a standout line that completely anchors the message we have been discussing.
The quote is a profound shift in perspective regarding how we navigate our goals.
Yeah.
The rule is once the order or bet is placed, relax and enjoy the ride, since you have done all your worrying beforehand.
Relax and enjoy the ride. I love that phrasing because it is so liberating. It reinforces that your job is not to endlessly suffer over a problem. Once the heavy lifting of gathering the facts is done, once you have clearly defined the target and made the decision, your conscious work is over.
It really is.
It is simply time to let your internal machinery execute the plan. You have to trust the system you have built. As we wrap up, I want to remind you of the immense built-in computing power you already possess. You are fully equipped for success. Your only job is to gather the information, set the goal clearly, and then get out of your own way so your success mechanism can thrive.
It really does require a leap of trust. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on as you go about your week. If our subconscious success mechanism is doing the actual heavy lifting and problem solving in the background, what happens when we feed it low-quality data?
Oh, that is a great question.
We talked about the importance of gathering facts, but think about your daily inputs.
Yeah.
Are the shows you mindlessly binge watch or the endless social media arguments you scroll through secretly becoming the blueprints and the data sets that your success mechanism is using to navigate your life? If your subconscious is a guided missile, you need to be fiercely protective of the coordinates you are programming into it.
That is an incredibly sharp point to end on. Guard your inputs, trust your internal machinery, and stop trying to steer the missile mid-flight. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe to get notified about the next episode. Until then, stay curious and enjoy the ride.